Hey, I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to this channel. Give this video a like.
Yep. Also, check out our podcast below in the description.
Did you see the tweet? Somebody said the last thing that Nate Robinson heard was like and subscribe. That was a good tweet. All right. The 49ers, John. I'm not laughing right now. 5-6. Arizona lost on Sunday. Obviously, the Rams lost because they played head-to-head. Arizona and the Rams play each other next week, which might be the day before the Niners play in Arizona, a home game against the Buffalo Bills. So there's two parts to this, right? The playoff picture, as difficult as the math looks, they win against the Bills. They're a 500 team. The other part of this is they're homeless. Santa Clara kicked them out. At least 3 weeks they're going to have to be away from home. Practice and games. Which is pretty crazy for them to try and balance that and just trying desperately against all odds to make a playoff run.
Yeah, I think if you just look at the Bills game like their Super Bowl, you win that, you do get two NFC East teams. And actually, the two teams you'd play, we just saw on Thursday Night Football, or not Thursday, but Thanksgiving Day Football.
That's
The
right.
Cowboys really do stink. I mean, they are not very good. They just
Feels
are
like they're
not
getting worse,
good.
right? Like Washington's bad, but they're not getting worse. Dallas is
Yeah,
getting worse.
yeah. I mean, you watch Washington. The final score does not reflect like they're not that good, right? I mean, we'll get in. I wrote this down when we were talking about Heckard and punting. We got to talk about the fake punt they ran, but it's just I view both those two teams as just really shitty, and the Niners could just win those games. Now, anytime Nick Mullins your quarterback, it's hard for me to envision you beating the Bills. Let alone just I don't just go look at your schedule and go win. Like you don't do that. You live day to day, game to game with Nick Mullins, and really a lot is on clearly right your defense for Nick Mullins to win. So for them to go on a playoff run, but they still play Arizona and they still play Seattle, and as you saw today, like Arizona they're just one of those teams that you can't. They're a little like the Raiders in the sense of everyone I heard talk about them was like, oh, they're going to beat the Patriots. And I'm thinking in the back of my head, like, of course, they're just playing well. They're going to beat the Patriots. But it's also like, are they just, Cliff Kingsbury just going to go in there and beat Belichick? No, of course not. And they didn't. So all of a sudden, you're just got one less loss than them, and you still play them again. So technically, the Niners do have still a lot to play for. But the news, like, it got very, very difficult.
Can I just say something on that real quick? Just on
Yeah.
them, like, because we did a video a while ago before the bye week about how the math, it's like it's just not in their favor. Part of I try not to reach too many conclusions when the Niners play the Rams specifically because they're going to play Josh Allen, they're going to play Kyler, they're going to play Russ. They play Goff differently. Goff, it's just a better matchup for them. For everybody. I mean, it's not
Like,
their fault.
wouldn't you agree Alex Smith and Andy Dalton are going to be really good matchups for them?
Absolutely, but winning those two games is not enough for them to make the playoffs. They got to beat the Bills. They got to they got to win all these other games. So I still think, as good as they looked, the Bills' ceiling is just high. Now I do think the Bills' floor can be kind of low, but their ceiling is really high. Arizona's like a less variance version, I feel like, of the Bills, even though they beat them. Not as high a ceiling, maybe not as low a floor. I don't know, maybe the same. But anyway, I just want to make that point before we even get to this other complication for them. Is I still think somebody tweeted at me about the playoffs, and I was like, beat the Bills and then we can talk. Like, beat Josh Allen and then
I agree. I do not view them as a team that can go on a run because of Nick Mullins, and that means like I don't think they can beat the Bills. Now, do I think they could in a time if they force 3 or 4 turnovers? Yeah, but that's already what we're talking. Like, they can't just play a normal game and win.
Right.
And
exactly.
if you lose to the Bills, all of a sudden you're 5-7. I can't just chalk you up back-to-back wins against the Washington football team and the Cowboys with Nick Mullins as your quarterback. Now, you could win those 2 games and get to 7-7, but it's still really difficult.
And
right?
That's not, exactly.
Because anytime Nick Mullins is your quarterback, you kind of live game to game. Now we got to factor in Santa Clara County kicking them out of the county, even though I would imagine in the state of California that the NFL teams, but I just know the most about the Niners. Obviously, the Chargers and the LA Rams have to follow the same thing. There is not a safer business environment than those, given that every single person who walks in, they get tested, the amount of protocols within the building. Clearly, the NFL has shown popping all these people with these fines, they can ask like a lawyer for your cameras and your film. Like, they found Drew Lock with his mask off. Like, they are not fucking around. There's too much on the line. And I think you hear Kyle's comments after the game. And I think this goes for most of the business community, like the ones that like my gym, the Bay Club, who was forced to shut down. The protocols they've taken are above and beyond. The money they're spending, the way that they force you to mask, and if it even comes to your nose, someone's yelling at you, like it's impressive. And honestly, it kind of pisses me off the treatment of these people like yo-yos. And I think for the first time, football had kind of been exempt of all this stuff, right? In all these cities, no matter what happened.
They found ways to make exceptions, with the exception of like Berkeley and Cal football.
Yeah, and so again, like in California,
but even they had made exceptions for Cal. Sorry, keep going.
But at first they didn't, right? It feels like they have now.
Right.
And the Niners got caught in this wave of just, I think it's pretty embarrassing, but it is what it is. Like this is what the California politicians are doing constantly. When I watch football all weekend, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it is kind of crazy knowing the Niners can't practice at home. And I'm sitting there last night, or yesterday, flipping around. Like, it looked like Clemson was full, right? They're fans in the Bucs game. Rory McIlroy is sitting at the Bucs game, watching the Bucs game. And the Niners aren't even going to, they're, as we're recording this, it looks like they're going to probably have to practice at the Raiders facility, which is so stupid. It's right up the road, and play these games in Arizona for a team that, like, and again, all these teams are following the protocols. Well, definitely some of these teams clearly aren't, but the Niners.
But I would say, I would guess most Broncos do. Because
Exactly.
I know they do, because they played a game, right?
For sure.
Like the guys that don't are the exception.
So it's just this game, like we're going to be talking about this game all week. Monday Night Football, it's going to be a road game. And more than likely, they're going to have to, the way Kyle's, we don't have all the information as of recording this, but like they're going to have to just bubble up. Like they don't get to drive to the Raiders facility in the morning and then to go home. Like they're not going to be doing that. Like it's going to be very, very complicated.
Just some of the reading I was doing on Twitter, Mostert was pretty emotional. He has a newborn. Like he's going to, I guess he got emotional just talking about the whole thing. And Kyle, it sounded like part of what he was pissed off about was that they just didn't, that the level of communication they got was not very good. Like he's pissed about the fact that this is how it's going to be, but also it sounded like, did you hear that right? Yeah. Is that you were playing some of the audio?
He thought that finding out, because clearly this is direct, there is no high school football going on. It doesn't affect that. Even the San Jose State, these games are getting canceled left and right. Right? I mean, San Jose State literally just got canceled against the Niners. They could just drive down
Boise.
the road.
Yeah,
the
Niners thing, but it wasn't San Jose's fault.
No, it wasn't. Oh, it was Fresno's.
Fresno, and then Boise back-to-back games have been canceled because of their opponent. They've been super, like they have not had, they've handled it really well.
Stanford, San Jose State, and obviously the 49ers are it only impacts those three teams of all the businesses in the area. Think about that, because it's so public. You wouldn't know, like a 14-day quarantine, if me and you had a guest. Let's say we had a studio in San Jose and we had Joe Rogan coming on the podcast. How would anyone know? No one would. But it's clear, like the Arizona Cardinals or the Buffalo Bills can't just fly in and play. It's fucking obvious. It's a public job. It's so public where it basically felt like this rule was written for the 49ers, which is insane when they are by far in the state of California probably the safest business in the state.
Well,
and
I would even add, like, we have the data. San Jose State's been doing this as a football program. They've been really, I don't think they've had any issues. Stanford had an issue, but it turned out to not be an issue. I mean, it's not to say they haven't had any contact tracing, but Stanford has not had a game canceled because of them. San Jose State has not had a game canceled because of them. Just thinking, yeah, they have not. In other words, like those teams, the Niners have not. The Niners had the Thursday night situation, and it turned out to be a super isolated, right? Like, remember when it happened with them, it was like 4 guys, and no one else really got added afterwards. Like the Ravens situation where they didn't play, and then it turned out it was kind of a good thing they didn't play.
And then remember it was false positives on a couple of those guys.
Yeah. So like those 3 teams have been really good about it. Now San Jose State had to leave before the season to go to Humboldt State for 2 weeks, came back, handled their business, and they don't have the financial wherewithal that an NFL team has to protect itself. Like,
why didn't the Niners have to do that? Thinking back,
remember there was some thought that they might have to. Maybe I don't remember exactly.
Maybe they were exempt, but it wasn't that during training camp.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't remember how that played out differently for them.
I don't either. Not that. I mean, But again, even back to that it felt like the Niners were exempt. When someone texted me yesterday, like, bro, this is gonna be bad. My initial thought is, no, they'll be fine. Like, it's
Right.
not. And then clearly that is not the case. And the reality is, no matter how inept and radical you think this is, like, the facts are the facts. Like, I saw Jed just tweeted, like, one day at a time, basically. Like, congrats on the win. We'll just take it one day at a time. This is the cards they're dealt. And it's just, to me, it's one thing, as you saw with the Broncos today, they created that, right? And the Ravens just got fined. Clearly, they played a role in that. This is out of, and it's why I felt no sympathy even for the Broncos. I didn't. The Ravens deal, like, if you guys are breaking the protocols back when the Raiders got popped, it's like, guys, you can't go to a fucking whatever that thing for
Fundraiser,
Darren
yeah.
Waller. Like, you guys are morons. Like, if the Niners had done something to cause this, it's like, they had a practice.
They
where
can't be trusted.
It's bullshit. And I'd be like, well, it's on them. I understand why Kyle's going to be really mad. And I also think it kind of just symbolizes what's going on with California, the treatment of just businesses. Now, no one's going to feel sorry for them economically, right? Because they have money like they would necessarily about a restaurant or whatever getting closed down. But if you're just a Niner fan, like, your team, it's going to be very, very difficult.
And I'll say this
given
too,
the
like,
circumstances.
I know, like, no one's going to feel bad for them economically, but if you're Jed York, you're going to be like, we're doing everything right here. It's going to cost me how much money to go basically bubble up in Oakland, and then I'm going to go to Arizona. I know
Got to get
for
extra
the
charter flights.
University of New Mexico is spending $70,000 a week to use Las Vegas as its home because they can't be in Albuquerque. So I can only imagine NFL teams stay in nicer hotels, right? Players Association will require it. You're right. The planes, the food
Equipment
is better.
more. Just
I mean, it's just
you could probably go educated guess 180, 200 a night or something. I mean, it's probably high.
A week or a night.
You said 70 a week or 70 a night?
70,000 a week is what University of New Mexico is spending.
Yeah, I'd say probably 250 a week. Feels like it'd be pretty high.
Yeah.
Especially if you factor in extra charter flights, they wouldn't have to charter this week. They just play at home, right?
Right.
What's a charter flight for football? I remember Fresno State it being 25,000. Like, that's really expensive. So both ways, you're talking 50 grand. It's just bing, bing, boom. Do they have to rent it out from Arizona? I mean, it's just, this is the real world.
I mean, even if they don't rent it, well, I guess the stadium costs in theory could be the same, but yeah, right.
I would imagine you got to pay for the venue that day. It's just basic business, right? I mean,
you would think. I wonder if the NFL would.
Maybe the NFL helps them or whatever, but still, like, I don't know. Maybe they split the costs or whatever. I do think someone, whether it's the Niners or the league, the Arizona Stadium's getting paid for the use that day, right?
Yes, it's not a voluntary donation.
No,
and
it shouldn't.
It works.
I mean, it's not, but it's just it's a shitty deal. Clearly, Kyle's pretty mad. To me, they got not lucky, but because they won this game fair and square. I would say it could get really weird if they had been 4-7, and let's say they had lost this game by like 20. Like, these guys are going to quarantine.
Yeah.
99% of these guys don't live in California in the off season. They got to be fucking pissed, because I would be. The coaches are clearly mad.
Do you pay taxes on your home games like baseball players do?
Yeah.
So you maybe save some money in the end?
Yeah. The Arizona income tax is doubled with the vote, but I don't think that kicks in 2020. It went from 3 to 6.
So what you were alluding to, it went from 3 to 6. That's still a deal compared to California for those guys.
Oh yeah.
But what you're alluding to is, like, maybe they can. Could they rally around this? Just kind of we're getting fucked, but we're going to treat it as an opportunity. Maybe you're right. I mean, if they had just lost, you wouldn't get opt-outs, but you would just start. It could just get weird for them.
I would take the Bills by 20 this week if they had just lost and they had to quarantine, or not quarantine, but bubble up in the Raiders facility. I back to what we originally talked about, though. You can rally all you want when Mullins is your quarterback. Now, I don't know if Mullins is going to be a lock to be the starting quarterback next week, just because, like, could you just throw CJ, see if he gives you a better look? He could come in before and showed you more. But if Mullins is your starting quarterback, you can rally all you want, and your defense can play as well as they did today. It shows you how hard it was just to win today, guys. It's an uphill battle no matter how tightly knit they are, which it does feel these guys are pretty tight. The other thing is, like, I mean, we haven't mentioned this guy yet, but God, McGlinchey is just not good. I mean, he's one of their bigger liabilities right now on their team. Like Mullins is Mullins. Like he just is an undrafted free agent backup.
He's
This
not
guy was
supposed
the
to be
ninth
there.
pick in the draft
Yeah.
who was just getting worse by the week. And I get he's like, oh, Twitter just takes one. Like, no, bro, it's consistently coming from your side, you know? And that's, to me, it's hard to go on a run when you have a tackle who's a major problem and a backup quarterback in. It would be, if Kyle can get to 9-7,
I would say even
assuming
8 and
Jimmy does
8.
not come back, it would be one of the all-time great.
Well,
8-8 is really impressive,
you
but
just
9 and
made me
7
think.
would be like, holy shit.
Will we end up in a position where all of a sudden Jimmy is playing a game that feels like maybe in the end it won't matter, but like where there's some lead up like Garoppolo, if they can get a win and somebody else loses, and then next week they do this.
I text a couple people like, when was the date that I hadn't really been following it that closely. It has kind of it's been irrelevant. It felt like the last couple of weeks, and they said Dallas was kind of the game, give or take. So if you could somehow win this week, if you had to guess, like what is the line this week?
I mean, not
Bills -4 or something.
No, see, I would go bigger. I'd go 5.5, 6.
So you're going to be a big underdog against these guys.
But
if you do win,
yeah. Well, here's the other thing,
because they get after Alex Smith.
I'll get their back. Yeah, that's true. I don't. You can't. I don't know if I want Alex to play.
Well,
that game.
it's weird to say that. Yeah.
I'll get their back too on this. The idea of the rally, like it's real, but I do think we've seen this year, like the adversity that teams have faced has been real. Like it does affect your team. It's hard to just overcome. No one, quote unquote, believes in you. Let's rally. Like that's one thing. But these are physical challenges, right? Emotional challenges. These moving your offices, not having a natural flow to your home games in terms of just your preparation, being in different hotel rooms, traveling to play a road game that's really a home game. All these things are really real circumstances that are pretty difficult to overcome, even if you've got the right attitude, even if you've got the right players. Because I think that's one thing this season has shown, right? My takeaway from this year, and if someone's got a lot of shit going on, expect that it's going to have a negative effect on them, just because I think you've been so mentally taxed. Go ahead.
Well, I find it happening with myself all the time for things that aren't happening to me. They're happening to other people that I sometimes I can't let the negativity and my anger towards stuff like this that I have no control over impact my daily life and what I have to do, just production wise, whatever I have going on that day. Cause it is easy, let alone I'm lucky. We do stuff that you can do. We were working from home before working from home became a thing, but I know so many people that work in these jobs that are getting treated like yo-yos and get to you. And I think the Niners, if you were a player, you start thinking you're being treated like a fucking yo-yo. And then it's just ridiculous, right? It would be a way that it'd be hard to focus.
And I think part of the focus issue is just you get no routine. Like all the basic things that you try to just have be your baseline for why being at home is beneficial. You don't have that stuff.
The one thing where football, more than any other sport, is they preach it and they preach it and they preach it like no matter what comes at us, we just fucking pivot, right? We just find a way. There's a way. Like the Navy SEALs adapt and overcome.
No,
like we just got to figure it out. It's
sure.
just part of the sport in football.
For sure.
Especially because like during the week in baseball, it's like, well, you play the next day, you play the next day. Even in basketball, you play a lot. In football, it's like, well, this next week we're just prepping for Sunday or Monday. It's just very unique sport because you practice so much. And so even if you do have to go to the Raiders facility, which I can't even imagine what that place looks like inside.
Is Just Win Baby still up, you think?
I would imagine.
They got to get it cleaned. I mean,
you got to get it. Yeah, just now. Remember the league.
I bet they took the signs with them.
The league, you're going virtual Monday, Tuesday, no matter what in the NFL all week.
Yeah, but now you're doing virtual from a hotel.
Well, I'm just saying Monday, Tuesday. Then maybe you say we all meet Wednesday morning at wherever.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we're gonna find out more in the next
high.
24 hours.